Juvela and today I'm going to be making gluten-free mince pies. This recipe uses either the Juvela gluten-free white mix or fibre mix, both of which are all-purpose baking mixes suitable for all your baking needs. The recipe uses 200 grams of the mix, so I'm still going to have enough left that I can still make my Christmas cake and my Christmas pudding, which goes to show just how much you can make from one packet of mix. Okay. So before you start, just preheat your oven to 190 degrees or 170 if you have a fan oven, which is gas mark 5, and ensure you have all your ingredients weighed and ready. So here I've got 200 grams of the white mix, or as I mentioned, you can use the fibre mix if you prefer, the grated rind of an orange, 100 grams of hard fats, 1 medium egg lightly beaten, some cold water and some gluten-free mincemeat. Ensure that the mincemeat that you're using is gluten-free, so always double check the label. Okay, so in the bowl I've got my gluten-free white mix, and to that I'm just going to add the orange rind. We're then going to start to add our fats, so I've just cut those into small squares. I'm going to pop them into the mix. It's really important to use cold hard fats, so leave them in the fridge until you're just about to use them, because the rubbing in stage is a really important stage, and if you were to use fats that had been out of the fridge for a little while, and as soon as you start to rub them in, the fats would be a little bit warm and oily and the mixture would start to come together before you want it to. So it's really important to leave them in the fridge until you're just about to use them. We tend to use a combination of hard margarine and lard, the hard margarine for flavour and the lard for shortness. If you prefer to use all hard margarine, that's absolutely fine, or perhaps for a nice rich pastry you can use butter as well. It's not as important as with traditional pastry to get to a fine breadcrumb stage. What we want to achieve is a coarse breadcrumb, because any larger lumps that are still visible will be incorporated into the mixture at a later stage when we knead the pastry. Keep the fats moving around the bowl. Be careful not to keep picking the same piece up, and just rub those in lightly with your fingertips. So you can see if I give the bowl a shake, there are a couple of larger lumps there, but that's absolutely fine because they will be incorporated later. The next ingredient I'm going to add is a medium egg, which provides some additional structure to the pastry, where gluten isn't present to provide that structure. So just give that a quick stir in with your knife before you then start to add your water. Again, as with your fats, make sure your water's really nice and cold. And I'm going to just add that very gradually, 1 tablespoon at a time, because it's so much easier to add than to take away once you've added too much. So just 1 spoonful at a time, and then I'm getting my hands in and just moving the mixture around the bowl. Don't force it together, as it has absorbed sufficient water, it will start to form a dough of its own accord. You usually find with the white mix that you'll add between 2 and 3 tablespoons, slightly more with the fibre mix because of the increased absorbency of the added fibre. As you can see, it is starting to form a dough now, and then you can give it a little bit of a squeeze just to help pick up the last dry ingredients from the bottom of the bowl, and that's a good indication that you've added sufficient liquid. So as you can see, the dough has come together, but it's quite a crumbly dough at this stage. But watch it transform as we start to knead the dough. So just on a surface slightly dusted with some gluten-free mix, I'm just going to start to knead the pastry like you would with a traditional bread dough, which is where it differs so much from traditional pastry, because unlike traditional pastry, gluten-free pastry actually benefits from being handled. So just as soon as I start to knead it, it becomes much smoother and much more pliable and much more like traditional pastry, and it'll be much easier to work with. So just knead the dough for a minute or two, but it won't be detrimental to it if you do it for longer, because gluten-free pastry does benefit from being handled. So the pastry's now ready to roll out, so just lightly dust your surface again and dust the rolling pin as well. And then just using smooth, sharp strokes, just start to roll your dough out. and keep it turning on the surface that's not going to stick to your surface. Once it does get that little bit bigger, you can pop it over the rolling pin to pick it up that way, just to turn it. You want to roll it so that it's at a thickness of about 1/2 centimetre, and then we can line the tartlet tins to make our mince pies. So I'm now going to fill my pastry cases with my mincemeat. You must make sure that the mincemeat is gluten-free by checking on the label and the ingredients list. Okay, I've cut some stars from the remaining pastry dough that I'm just going to top my mince pies with, just for a festive twist. I'm then going to brush those with beaten egg. The egg wash will give the mince pies a lovely golden glaze once they've been baked. So now that I've done that, I'm going to pop them into the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. So once your mince pies are baked, pop them onto a wire rack to cool, and then once they're completely cooled, just dredge with a little bit of icing sugar to serve. Perfect with a glass of festive fizz. Cheers!